So Clarence Thomas, I don't know if you caught this thing over the weekend. It was a big story in the New York Times. Clarence Thomas, apparently in 1991, when he was put on the court, or maybe it was 92. I know the hearings were in 91. I think it was 91 that he got put on the court. He was immediately hooked himself up with a group of insanely rich Americans. Now, my dad was a book collector. When I grew up, we had 20,000 books in our basement. In fact, when I was 8 or 9 years old, thereabouts, I didn't want to have a bunk bed with my brother any longer. There were 4 boys in a 3-bedroom house. And so I went down to the basement with Dad's permission, and it was set up like a library, all these shelves and things, and I kind of carved out this little corner of the basement and put a bed in there and a chest of drawers, and that became my bedroom. And so I lived in a library for half my childhood, which is why I just love the smell of rooms full of books. But in any case, one of the books that Dad collected a lot of books, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and one of the ones that he collected were by Horatio Alger. In fact, he was a member of the Horatio Alger Society, which was just a book collecting club that collected all kinds of books from that era, not just Horatio Alger's, but specifically those. But there's another Horatio Alger group. It's called the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans that my dad had nothing to do with. And this was a group of insanely rich people who believe that they got rich because they themselves are the smartest people in the world. Rags to riches stories. And they embraced Clarence Thomas like there was no tomorrow. A lot of these people are billionaires. And the New York Times says, he has granted this group unusual access to the Supreme Court, where every year he presides over the group's signature event, a ceremony in the Supreme Court courtroom in which he places Horatio Alger medals around the necks of new lifetime members. One entrepreneur called it the closest thing to being knighted in the United States. And, Thomas has served as the group's messenger. Now, this is a group that doesn't bring cases before the Supreme Court, but has a very clear interest in the value systems and interests of right-wing billionaires, of people who have, rags to riches folks, people who've made a lot of money in the United States and think that they did it because they're the smartest guy in the room. And, Thomas doesn't seem to wonder why these rich people love him. He apparently thinks it's his sparkling personality and his incredible wit. In fact, it's because he's on the Supreme Court. And, he needs to figure this out, that he's been exploited by rich people for 30 years now. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Supreme Court, they just legalized stalking in a case that almost nobody's talking about, and I don't know why. I want to share that with you, and I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break.